All right. Yuko, am I saying your name correctly?
Yes.
Good. It looks kind of hard to mess up, but I'm betting people still do it.
Yeah, there's been like Yuki's and Yoko, because
Of
Yoko
course.
Ono.
I do
But
know of Yoko Ono. As a white artist married to an Asian woman, I am very
yes.
familiar with who Yoko Ono is.
Yep, I've had that quite a few times, but no, it's Yuko, yeah.
It is Yuko, which is a cool name. Where are you from, Yuko?
I'm from Tokyo, Japan.
Tokyo, Japan. Love it. Haven't been there yet. Big fan of
Oh, you
its
should.
overall vibe, though. Wonderful. Are
Yes.
you born and raised Tokyo in the city?
I I was not born in Tokyo. I was born in like the southern part of Japan, southern east side in a very small island.
Okay.
Um, and then right after I was born, my family moved to Tokyo, because of my parents' jobs, and um, I was actually only there until 4, and then we moved abroad.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's slow down here because we're already off to the races. I feel like I got all these questions. Let's start with this. Parents, work. What are mom and dad doing for work that takes them from a small island into Tokyo?
My dad has a very interesting job. He works for a company that manufactures like those like thin rubbers on those that are on windows. He works for a factory
Yeah,
that
like a
does that.
gasket, like the sealant
Yeah, yeah,
gasket
yes.
thing. And so
Yes,
he
exactly.
works for a factory where he makes that. He have a white collar job. He works in the office.
Yes, yes.
Is he like a manager?
Yeah,
Did
basically,
he
yeah.
get a promotion to oversee a big gasket factory
I
and then
don't know
you had
how
to move
he
to Tokyo? You were
I guess
4.
the company that he worked for had a factory
Got it.
abroad, so that's where he got transferred.
So where did you go from Tokyo then? What does abroad mean?
We lived in Malaysia
Okay.
in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
We were there it was supposed to be 3 years, like every other expat family, but it
Okay.
somehow grew to 5, and then it grew to 11.
Holy shit. So now you're
Yeah.
like 15 and you still live in
hmm
Malaysia?
Yeah, I only got back we only, got back to Japan when I turned to ninth grade. No, 10th grade. 10th grade was when we moved back.
That's so
Um,
interesting. That's such a formative period of time. I seriously doubt you remember very much of the first Tokyo experience
no, yeah, I
or
don't remember
that
much at
whole
all.
vibe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's different. And then you really kind of grew up in Malaysia. Do you feel
Yes.
that way?
Yes. Yeah. My parents like really took that opportunity to um help, me and my sister be really involved within the community and sort of
Yeah.
be a part of that local
Older
life.
sister, younger sister.
Younger sister,
Younger sister. What is your younger sister's name?
Yoshiko.
Yoshiko.
Yes,
Did I say it
Yoshik.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I get really excited about stuff like that. I love names. Okay, so Yuko and Yoshiko, right?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
are growing up in Malaysia after, and so your sister, was she born there or was she born in Tokyo
She
and then you
was,
guys went?
yeah, she was like 11 months old when we moved.
Okay, so baby, she's got nothing
Yeah.
going on in Japan.
hmm
It's interesting that you say you're from Tokyo, which is definitely kind of true, but you're really from that small island, lived in Tokyo for a minute. You're kind of half from Malaysia because of all this huge 11 years of your childhood that you lived there.
hmm
And then you moved back to Tokyo before you came to School of the Arts. Do I have that time right?
Yes, yes.
Got
For
it.
my last
Okay.
3 years of high school. Yeah.
So when you and your sister are growing up in Malaysia, what are you guys doing for fun? And more specifically, I guess to follow up on what you said, what are your parents doing with you in the community? Are you at church? Are you at activities? Like what are you involved in?
So my parents decided to send us to a local school in Malaysia. They had a
Okay.
Japanese school
Oh,
in the city that we lived in because there were a lot of Japanese expat families like us.
okay.
But instead, we went to a local kindergarten with, Malaysian. So Malaysia,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're familiar, but it's a multiracial country. So there's
Yes.
Indian, Chinese, and Malay. So all of my classmates were pretty much that. And so I learned English when I was 4. It was, yeah, English, Malay, and Mandarin when I was 4, when we got to the local kindergarten. And then after that, we went to a local elementary school and studied with the local kids there, um, which was definitely an experience, for sure. But I, at that time, it's funny because I was pretty much more fluent in Mandarin than I was in English.
I was about
And
to ask, like, where do you sit right now with language? Like, what languages do you feel right now today that you're very comfortable in?
right now I'm most comfortable in English, and then
Wow, okay.
yeah, and
You
then
sound
Japanese
incredibly
comes
comfortable
next.
in English. If
Yeah.
I met you, I would not necessarily assume you were not born in the States. You have kind of a general English to you, but I
Yeah,
wouldn't be able to pin it down.
thank
And
you.
I was in the drama school. I studied accents for a few
Hmm.
minutes, so I definitely have an ear for it. But it's very curious. So you're kind of a mix of culture at that age. You're really getting so many different things that a lot of people in that part of the world are not exposed to as diverse of a culture, I don't think. Am I
Yeah.
wrong? I mean, in Malaysia, yes, but like
Yes,
you go to
yes, right.
Japan, people are largely Japanese. Everything's
Correct.
in Japanese.
Right.
Korea's the same way, China's the same
Hmm.
way, but
Hmm.
you're getting this kind of almost a melting pot, right?
Right. Right. Exactly. And because Southeast Asia is like so many countries are so close to each other, my parents
Right.
also took that opportunity to like travel to these different countries. Um, and again, because Malaysia's a multiracial country, like we have long breaks every month. So we took advantage
Long
of that,
breaks every month? What does
like
that
long
mean?
holidays, like
Oh,
public
because there's so
holidays.
many different
Right. There's
cultures you
like
have to
three
take
kinds
off
of
for
New
Ramadan and
Year's,
take
and
off for.
yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's wild. We don't really do that in the States. We're very Western
No.
with our holidays.
Right.
That's interesting.
Exactly.
Malaysia's better at holidays than us, is what I'm hearing. That's the lesson I'm taking away from this so far. Okay, cool. And so is mom just taking care of the kids or she work at the during all
But
this?
when we were living abroad, she was a stay-at-home mom. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. Oh, does she work now or does she retire?
She does work now.
What does she do
She's
now?
working.
What does she get into?
She she works for a sort of like a concierge for a credit card
Oh,
company. So she
cool.
kind of answers phones and helps people, you know.
Low customer service action.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
We need that. I love it. Um, so let's then get on board with Yuko's track with lighting design. Is that what your degree is in from the School of
Hmm.
the Arts, lighting design?
Yes.
Listeners of this show will know that I have some familiarity with that particular area. I started off in DMP as a lighting technician, not design, because I'm a dummy and I wasn't in the design program. Used to be able to just get an arts diploma back then with no
Hmm.
bachelor's degree. You just like would go all arts classes and not take academics. So, but if you were in DMP and you didn't get the degree, then you had to be on the tech tracks. So you couldn't be a costumes designer, but you could be stitching. You couldn't be a lighting designer, but you could be hanging and programming. Um, I was on that master electrician track,
Interesting.
basically.
Uh-huh.
I like plugging things in and climbing on ladders. I don't know what it is. Um, but let's talk about how you got there. How did you get into lighting as a thing? And then how, I don't think I've ever met an international lighting student that wasn't from like, I think there was somebody from the Caribbean
Uh-huh.
once that I didn't meet him, but I like almost crossed over with him. I don't think we had anybody, maybe someone from Canada or Mexico. How do you come from so far away for lighting design? And then how did start me with how you got into that in the first place?
I started being involved in lighting in high school when we moved back to Japan. They had like
Okay.
a backstage. My high school had a backstage theater like
Yeah, like tech theater
extracurricular
program.
activity, yeah, tech theater
Yeah.
program that I joined.
Yeah.
And they needed help with the lighting crew. I was, at first I was only doing props, but they needed some extra hands for in the lighting crew, so I joined. And I don't know, something about the camaraderie of the crew that I was in, and like being hands on with the things that you don't typically get to see from an audience point of view,
Right.
really attracted me. And
Were
I
you
like,
already doing theater stuff in Malaysia?
no, I was doing a little bit. So backtrack. I
Yeah,
was in
sometimes we do
Malaysia
that
for,
here. We go back and
yeah,
forth. Don't stress.
I was in Malaysia for 8 years, so
Right.
until sixth grade. And
Right.
then middle school, we moved to Singapore,
Okay.
um, for basically to have a better like education, school system
Okay. The
for
schools
us.
were better.
Right. We
Got
went
it.
to an international school in Singapore, my sister and I.
Okay.
So we moved there, and that's when I started being involved in like backstage crew at that school.
Got it.
And then I sort of tried to like find my way to continue that when we moved back to Japan and at my new school. So that's how I got involved.
Got it.
And then, yeah, I mean,
What made you stick with lighting rather than like, it sounds like you started in props, which I started in
mhm.
props. That's like the easiest shit in the world. No offense to props people. The people who make props, I'll give you more props.
Oh,
But the
yes,
people
yes,
who are just
there.
working props is like the easiest thing
Right.
to do. It's a great starter position.
Yep.
So you're working there, you end up gravitating towards lighting. Are you interested more in the technical? Or are you interested more in the design of it? I would imagine at that age, you're doing a lot more technical and probably not designing very
Yes.
much. But
Yes.
did you have an interest in like, are you starting to pay attention to like beams and colors and shapes? Or was it very much I'm trying to hang stuff up. It's a good job. This is fun, plugging shit in.
I think it was more of the process from as a whole. I
Yeah,
wasn't paying very much attention to the design part, but
right. Me either in the
more of
beginning.
like more of like being like going from folk hanging fixtures to
Yeah,
then focusing and then programming and then
right.
seeing what you know push buttons on the
Yeah,
little
yeah. And then it
computer, then
happens.
seeing that on stage, and
What
it's that
kind of
whole like
technology?
big
Did you have
picture.
like a bunch of fancy lights or was it a bunch of like pars just like you're playing with?
No, it was mostly, like source fours and pars. And we
Yeah,
just started having like a couple moving lights when I was in my senior year. So it wasn't very
nice.
advanced at
Your
all yet.
basic black box elements
Yes,
you're getting to play
exactly.
around with.
Yeah,
I love that. I don't get to
yeah.
talk to lighting people very often. This is fun. So, you maybe you can help me articulate this because I don't, like I said, I don't talk to a lot of people who are into this, and I've always been. You know what? This is I'm gonna get even nerdier with you because I like what you said about watching it come to fruition and going from like, oh, we're just like hanging a bunch of stuff on a pole, and now I hit go, and it's like that's cool. I'm with you on that. You know
Hmm.
what's extra satisfying for me? I love the hanging and focusing. My
It's
shit.
fun.
I love climbing up there. I like
Yeah,
getting the instrument. I like
yeah.
getting the focus. I like hiding the cables, tucking the cable around the catwalk in a
With
way
the
where it's like the
yes, with
gaff
the
and you try
tie
to get
line.
it. Yes, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it is. It's so satisfying for me. It's almost like you watch videos of people like power washing a driveway and
Mm-hmm.
it'd be like
Mm-hmm.
satisfying, right? With the
Mm-hmm.
hashtag or whatever. To me, and I started it when I was like 12 and I did it almost all the way
Oh
through high
wow.
school.
Okay.
I was
Mm.
always just addicted to the like putting everything where it goes, making it look
Yep.
nice, plugging it in, and it working. Like it
Yes,
all works.
for sure. Yep.
And I find that so satisfying, almost to my own detriment, because you probably experience this as well. You go out in the world and people find out you know how to plug shit in. Oh God. Oh no. Everyone knows
Mm-hmm.
now that you know how to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Yuko, it's not working. Can you? Is that how many times have you heard
Right.
that in your
Yeah.
life, right? Like
Yeah.
it's broken. Where's Yuko at? Make her stop what she's doing and come over here and fix
Exactly.
this. Do you like being that person? I've kind of resented
I
it.
No, I mean I don't mind it. It's yeah,
It feels
it's
good to be
fun
useful.
to yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I remember I got pulled out of a drama class because everyone in drama knew that I was the kid from DMP. Because there'd never been
Oh,
a drama kid from DMP
right,
before. And so once
right.
that's you, everyone's like, oh, yeah, it's that kid. The dance teacher would pull me out of other classes and be like, I don't know what's wrong with the stereo. And I would be like,
Oh my gosh.
I don't. And then, of course, unfortunately, I would go in there and fix it. And then it would be like,
Huh,
now I'm
that's
fucked because they're
funny.
always going to come get me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's an interesting thing, right? Like having an attraction to that because for so many people, it's something that they just want to take for granted. They just want it to
Mm-hmm.
work, right? Like they just want it to just work without having to think about it.
Yes.
But it really is people like you, and I would say people like me, but I do less kind of stuff like that these days. But it's us that bother to figure out how it all works and how to
Mm-hmm.
plug it in. That man, they'd all be helpless running around like this.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead.
Oh no, no, no. I was just gonna say it's also like a default workout for me. And I
It's a
did
what?
it's like a default workout for me
Yeah.
with all these like, being hands-on with big fixtures.
Yeah,
So
that
that
too, of
was
course. Are you, it's hard to tell in this video. Are you like a small person? Are you a
I
taller
am
person?
I am pretty small, yeah.
How tall are you?
Well, not too small, but like a normal normal,
For
I don't know.
normal for a young Japanese lady. How old
Yes,
are you?
yes. I'm 24. Yeah,
You're
turning five
24 and
this
you
year.
graduated in 21.
Hmm.
Um, so when you get to school, is there more of an interest in all the stuff we've just kind of been talking about, more of the mechanical, or did you start to take an interest in design at school, or did you get your degree in design?
I did. It was design, and
Talk to me about
because
how
I
you get there,
had
because it sounds
yeah,
like you were more of a button presser before you got
I
there.
was a button presser before that, but I think ultimately I was more interested in design and I wanted
Hmm.
to learn more about design because I didn't know very much going into school.
Was it about the
Um,
money at all? It's way better money being a designer.
no, not
Less
really.
work, more money. It's true. Design is less work, more money. And they told us that when we were at school. Maybe not everybody, but I heard it from enough people. They were like,
Huh, interesting.
well, if you think about it, right, that's true because
Yeah.
as a technician, first of all, every fucking project needs how many designers? One and an assistant. How many technicians
Hmm.
does it need? More than one.
Hmm.
Always. So there you go. There's your job amount. But
Yeah.
also, as you go from design to design job, you have to convince people that you're the best person to be picked over all those other people and get that one job.
Yes.
They're like, I need 5 technicians. Do you know how a board works? They're like, yeah. You're like, you hired. Short interview.
Yep.
Can you do the thing? And so, but when you finally get that design job, it might have one more zero on the end of that paycheck
Hmm.
than the mechanical job. Was that
Hmm.
an element for you when you were making that decision as far as like your future?
No, I
Not at
wasn't
all.
thinking that far. I just wanted to
That's probably
learn.
smart. That's probably smart, my
Yeah.
friend. I wouldn't have overthought it probably. I definitely was a little bummed because I'm also colorblind. So for me,
Mm.
it's like probably shouldn't be a lighting designer professionally, or I'm just going to start disappointing people and getting in fights that I can't win. So for you, when you started getting interested in the design, you started to see it from afar and be like, oh, it's very interesting. I haven't really gotten a chance to mess with that yet. When you got there, what kept you there? What kept you from kind of going back to like, I just want to program the board and hit go? It's easier.
I that's I don't It's an interesting question. I
Thank you.
I feel like our school it's unique in the way that they first let you experiment both sides,
Yeah,
right?
that's where my
Ever
question kind of
like
comes from.
from day
Yeah.
one. Um I don't know. I think I was more I think I knew that I would be better to be hands off with these fixtures almost as to say and then to sort of work on the creative side of things and then work with my electricians on how to make things work, if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. What I'm hearing you say is you think it's a better play to your skill set to do the design than to do the electrician.
Right.
Despite your ability and awareness and knowledge and experience in the technical, you think it's a better use of who you are and what you can do to be working on the design. But let me ask you why. What is it about the design elements of skills that you bring? And I'm kind of asking you to brag about yourself here, so I'm sorry if that makes you uncomfortable, but what is it that makes you go, okay, you're talking to a boss at some place and they're like, Yuko, I know I haven't really seen a lot of your design, but should we move you to the mechanical? Should we move you to the master electrician side? Make your argument to me for why you're like, no, 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 no. I should be one of your designers for this reason. Not a mechanic. I can do the mechanical, and if you need that, I could
Uh-huh.
do it. If that's the only job you have, but you should hire me as a designer because why?
It might sort of sound counterintuitive, but I think it's because design is for me, it's
Yeah.
a lot more challenging to convince people and to sort of like figure things out with like what I want essentially. I don't know. I like the challenge that design brings, and I like to see the picture basically on stage or wherever, and to sort of compare that with where I started from. I think I don't. Sorry, is this like not being articulate
No,
at
that's
all?
okay.
I think I just
I'm asking you
enjoy
kind of a
being.
complex question for that
Yeah,
reason.
no, I think I enjoy more of like exploring the artistic side. I'm really big into like the why do like finding
Mm,
the why into things. So
yes.
like the whole storytelling thing, and trying to figure out why I put this fixture over here as opposed to the other side. Why am I using this color? Why am I using this angle to like this? That's, to me, sounds a lot more interesting than working technically on a board or like circuiting and stuff like that.
Can I give you some words and you tell me if they work for what you feel?
Sure.
I think I should hire you as a designer because you're a deeply curious person. I think
Yeah,
you're
that's
someone
that's
who
true.
is
Yes.
very interested in getting to the bottom of the point of what we're doing here. And if that's the case, I would rather have that person as a designer than as a
Mm-hmm.
technician because I don't want my technicians to be overly curious. I don't want them to be overly innovative. If they think it's a better idea for the cable to go this way instead of that way and they have a reason for that and they want to change it, great. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
not looking to my electricians to innovate quite as much as I would want from my designers. I want the designers to think outside the box. I want the electricians to make the box work the
Mm-hmm.
way that we know it does. Plug the thing in.
Exactly.
Okay. Don't come up with
Right.
some creative way to plug it in. Just fucking plug it in.
Right.
Okay. Like, don't get too creative. I want consistency from that
Mm-hmm.
design. I want inspiration. I want a new idea. I want a curious mind that's like, what if we did this? That's a designer's mind in my
Correct.
head.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. Exactly. Yes.
You can use it in your next job interview, and I don't even
Thank
need a
you.
cut if you get the gig. Keep it. Um, absolutely. Well, and I think that that's fascinating personally because I think the same way. As I mentioned, I was on that track, that mechanical track. I love plugging
Mm-hmm.
things in. I love seeing it work. I love set everything up and then walk over here, flip the switch, and it all works. Like, that's so
Right.
cool. I love that. But at the same way, I'm the one who spends an hour trying to find a new way to do a thing I could have had done in 5 minutes if I would have
Mm-hmm.
just done it the way that we all know it works. And then someone comes over and they're like, why isn't all this done? And I'm like, I'm really close to figuring out a better way to do it. And they're like, we don't care about that.
Hmm.
We care that it isn't finished. That's all that matters. And I'm like, yeah, I probably shouldn't be doing this. I think you should get a different guy who never questioned it in the first place and is already on to the next task.
Right.
So when you are at school and you're connecting with the design stuff, are you studying with Norman at school
Hmm. Yes, but Norman also retired while I was at
while you
school.
were
So,
there? Okay.
hmm
And then
so I had 2 years of Norman and then 2 years of Clifton.
that is a great probably combination to have it
Yes,
split up.
that
I had the
was
same thing. Our dean changed my senior year.
uh-huh.
And so the head of my directing program. So I got some of both, which was really
Hmm.
kind of better. It's a little bit spoiled, honestly.
Hmm.
What's the difference? Tell me, because I don't know Clifton. I only know Norman because he was there forever. What's the big difference? They're gonna listen to this. Not really.
Clifton brought in a lot of new ideas and approaches to not only how to become a lighting designer, but also
Mm-hmm.
how to become a real human in the lighting,
Oh,
in the
we have a
artist,
life leader.
arty,
Do we have a
yeah,
guru
like
on
an
our hands?
how to become a good person in the industry. But I don't know, as like a whole, like a professional
What does that mean to you?
person.
Like, what did you learn from Clifton that you're like, man, I'm glad he came in because that's very helpful information, makes me a better human in the lighting community.
I think the biggest thing one of the biggest things that I learned is to always like not take things for granted and to always, like you said, be curious and also be very appreciative of every
Gratitude.
opportunity that you receive, and to not take everything for granted, and to sort of dig deep into like why
Mm,
you do what you do, kind of thing, if that makes sense.
yeah, it does.
Um,
Do you mean why you do what you do artistically in a play, or do you mean why you do what you do in a bigger sense of the word of like, why are you a lighting designer? Why are you an artist? Why are you doing this
I think
work?
it's a little bit of both. How can you
Okay,
apply that like bigger why into your smaller artistic why?
right.
Um, yeah, and to always, um, take advantage and continue learning, because lighting, there's always new things to learn about light and design and art, and so.
You know what I love about
um,
lighting in the sense that you just said, and sound is kind of this way too. You know how we know we're never done learning about it? Because both of those things, light
uh-huh.
and sound, exist on measurable spectrums of which there are large parts that we are unable to perceive. Like there's
Right.
light that happens that we can't see.
Yes.
There's sound that happens that we cannot hear,
Yep.
which means there's limits sure to what we can perceive, but obviously every human being is different, right? Some people are deaf,
Mm-hmm.
some people can hear like high pitched stuff from way the fuck over there. Like how are they able to hear that? Same thing with
Mm-hmm.
light. I'm fucking colorblind. This happened today, my new friend. Let me tell you something that happened to me today. I went shopping for a suit with my wife. This was so embarrassing. I went shopping for a suit with my wife. We're going to my brother-in-law's wedding. Her brother's getting married.
Uh-huh.
We're gonna go get a
Oh,
nice suit, right?
congrats.
Yeah, wait, sure. I'll tell him you said so. He's gonna get married. I need a new suit. We go to the mall. We're looking at it. I find a jacket
Uh-huh.
with some suits. It's a blue suit. There's jackets right here. There's pants on both sides, like on racks.
Uh-huh.
I grab a pair of pants. I grab a suit. We keep changing sizes. At the last second, I was like,
Uh-huh.
I think I want a slightly different size pair of pants. And I swap it out with another pair that I thought was on the same rack. I
Mm-hmm.
go and I put it on in the dressing room. I got the jacket on, I got the pants on. I come out in this suit and I go, well, and my wife goes, what? And I was like, what do you mean, what? I'm asking you how it looks. Like, what are we
Uh-huh.
doing here? And she goes, well, the color or the fit? And I was like, I'm so confused. What? Where we've been building this suit together for like 10
Right.
minutes, picking this
Right.
out. How does it look? And she
Mm-hmm.
goes, well, honey, you picked a different color pair of pants. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
what? And I look down and I swear to God, Yuko, blue, blue. I'm like, it's fucking blue. What are you talking about? And she goes, hold on. What's the new size you wanted? And she goes back and she comes and hands me another pair of blue pants that are
Mm-hmm.
indistinguishable to me. I'm looking at the ones I have on and the ones she gave me. I'm like, ah, I go in there, I switch them out. I'm like, these are way more comfortable. They look like the suit.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, these two pairs of pants were two different colors of blue that I'm incapable of seeing the difference between. Like I just could
Interesting.
not tell the difference between
Yeah.
these two things. And my wife
Yeah.
was instantly thrown off by my question because she was like, I don't know what your question is because now
Yeah.
you're
I
wearing
don't
a
know what you're
mismatched suit. What
asking.
the fuck are we doing?
Right.
Like, we're both looking at each other like, are you crazy? And we finally walk away. And of course, I have to have the humility to know this is my thing. It's not her fault. I can't
Uh-huh.
mad at her because she can see and I can't. And so just that alone shows that we as people are not done figuring color out. We as
Mm-hmm.
people are not done figuring out light. We're not done figuring out sound. These things where some of us can't even
Right.
participate. That clearly means that we're in a level of figuring out how it works, the degrees, how we experience it, adjustments,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's lights, uh, being affected by the glasses. I haven't worn them, but you
Right.
can wear the glasses that are like make you not colorblind, apparently. I think that man, that and why wouldn't you be interested endlessly in something that we just can't solve no matter how many thousands of years we try to study it? We're still never going to figure it
Right.
all the way out.
And I think that's the one of the beauties about like lighting design is that, it's so like people can perceive that differently in many different
Yes.
ways,
Yeah.
even though you're looking at the same color. Like my red might be different to your red.
It literally would be, I promise you, because
Um,
based on my experience, nobody's red looks like mine. I can't see any of it. I don't know. Um,
so yeah.
I love that. Okay, so you get out of school, you've got these human life lessons and all this design knowledge, and now you're hungry to do. What is the idea as far as like you get the year right in the States if you want it?
Yes. I did get that year. Um, it's interesting because I sort of took a different route than I thought I would post grad.
Sure. That
Um,
happens, believe me, more
that
often than you might
happens.
guess.
That's okay.
What does that
I
mean?
so I graduated in 2021,
Hmm.
which COVID, while I was still in school, it was still very much a thing.
Yep.
Um, and I realized that like doing pursuing a freelance job as a non-US citizen during COVID was probably not the safest choice if I wanted to stay in the States.
Sure.
So during my senior year, second semester, I the lighting program basically was introduced to architectural lighting design. And that was, completely brand new to me. I didn't even care that there was architectural lighting design. The only lighting design I knew was theater. But basically, um, fast forward, I interned for an architectural lighting company post grad, and then I had my one extra year with them with my student visa. And then after that, I applied for the H-1B is what we call it. It's the
Hmm.
lottery-based employment visa.
Yep.
And I miraculously got selected the first
Holy
round.
shit.
Yeah, that was crazy. It
That's
was like the
awesome.
most stressful year of my life, and I don't want
When
to
was
go
that?
through
You
that.
got that like right after? Did you get to just stay in the States?
I that was last year in March, sometime around like March or February was when I got the news that I got selected.
I know it's a
Yeah.
long time ago, but congratulations. That's a
Thank
fucking
you.
awesome thing to do.
Yeah. If that was not the case, I would have had to. I think Sophia mentioned this during her
Mm,
interview, but get the O1 visa, which is like
right.
you need to like advertise your like
Prove that you're of
skill
value to
sets
the
and yes,
entire world.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I did that. So now I have until 2028 for now
That
with
is
this
plenty
work
of time.
visa, as long as my company like sponsors this.
Right.
Um, but
You still
anyways,
work
yeah.
for that
So
same architectural
I
firm?
do, yes. So like I have a theater. I have a lighting design and theater degree, but now I do work for architectural lighting
That is
design.
so awesome.
Thank you. Yeah,
No, it really
it's
is.
been
I'm
fun.
so like, Yuko, let me explain something about this podcast. I know you just started
Hmm.
listening, but one of the things that we're obsessed with, and I say we being mostly Steven and I and other people who helped me make this, it's like one of the things that I feel like is missing from the conversation while I was at school, and it sounds like a lot of this has changed, and I think COVID
Uh-huh.
probably helped the conversation
Hmm.
move along. I think a change in guard of people who are running the school helps a little bit too, just because there was a period really in the 90s and early 2000s where it was a lot of the same people ran it for like 20 years and they were just repeating what they'd
Right.
been doing, a
Right.
lot of which was very helpful, great, successful. But
Hmm.
I've heard of a lot of recent kind of fun innovation stuff that I find. Here's my argument: the conservatory skill set, the conservatory education is a
Hmm.
backwards up to now mindset in a helpful way. Meaning,
Hmm. Hmm.
we are going to teach you all the knowledge of the past, right? We're going to go through and
Hmm.
we're going to teach you how lights used to be candles with fucking mirrors in them and all that. Like, we're going to
Hmm.
teach you how the skill set grew over the history of humans trying to do it,
Hmm.
focusing along the way on the people who were the best at it, the biggest innovations that made it what we do today. And we're going to give you
Hmm.
lots of opportunities to practice that shit.
Hmm.
Great, great education. The problem with that is, in my opinion, if you're not careful,
Hmm.
you become overly focused with the past and you don't focus quite enough
Yes.
on the future. They're worried
Yes.
that if they focus too much on the future, it's going to diminish the value of the skills
Hmm.
that they've
Of the
built based on the
past. Yeah.
past, right?
Hmm.
This is a fallacy. This is a mistake. It is a huge mistake to assume that you can't walk and chew gum at the same time in this analogy, that
Hmm.
you can't study this and keep this in mind and then use it to do the future. There's no reason why it doesn't play perfectly. In fact, everybody who's trying to do something good and great in the future should be very well versed on whatever it is they're trying to do and how it happened in the past,
Right.
because that's how we learn from it. And
Yeah.
so, it to me, I think there are people out there who might hear your story and go, "Oh man, it's a drag you're not a Broadway lighting designer. It's a drag you're not Cirque du Soleil in Vegas, doing the Michael Jackson lighting, whatever the fuck."
Hmm.
I don't like your story does not hit me at all that way. In fact, it's the very opposite. I'm like, "Of course. Of course." When I got to School of the Arts and I was in lighting, I thought Broadway and like
Uh-huh.
local regional theaters, I thought that was the whole market for jobs.
Right.
And then they were like, what about
I
cruise
thought so
ships?
too.
Right. They're like,
Yeah.
what about cruise ships? They're like, what about concerts? They're
Hmm.
like, what about Cirque?
Hmm.
What about this? And I was like, I never thought about that. And what you just did to me was, what about architectural lighting? What about lightings on the outside of fucking buildings and theme parks
Hmm.
and things like that? And I'm like,
Hmm.
of course. That, and we should always be looking for that shit. And that was
Right.
the same problem that I had with the drama program, which is like, we're all learning the fundamental skill sets that apply to all these different things, but we're kind of only ever
Hmm.
talking about theater and a little bit about film and television.
Right.
What about everything else?
Hmm.
Everything else, and how happy the school should be to
Hmm.
have you as a
To expand and
successful.
explore and exactly. Yeah.
And to be able to point to you, Yuko, and say, look, here's somebody who started with a kind of raw interest in this thing called lighting. We
Mm-hmm.
introduced her to design. That changed her trajectory and refocused her skill set on a place where she was even more helpful. Then,
Mm-hmm.
because of the pandemic and because of this introduction and exposure to a new industry completely within her skill set, now she is even on a visa for the job of doing this fucking really cool thing that she didn't even, talk to her at 17 in Tokyo about to leave to go out into the world. And you're like, you're going to design light on buildings. You'd be like, that's a fucking job? Who? Okay. Like that is such a
Yeah.
cool thing and in no
Thank
way
you.
subpar to Broadway or whatever the fuck. Like that's not better. This is almost better because it's like the kids at School of the Arts need to know there's also this. There's
Right.
also this because there just ain't enough jobs for us all to work on Broadway. And you
Mm-hmm.
might find working on Broadway ain't even what the fuck you wanted it to be anyway. Might be like, who needs the pressure? Can you give me like a bank? Can you can you give me like you know what I mean?
A
Like a
stable
little bit
income.
lower stakes. And you know how many banks
Yeah.
there are? A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. I think
I
that's a cool
do.
story.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. I don't think I've met anybody who has spoken so highly of, or said such kind words with
I'm not
the
blowing smoke,
transition.
Yuko. I'm not just saying it to be
It's
nice. I
very
promise. I'm not
kind.
like trying to make you feel better because you
No,
bailed or
no.
something. It's not that.
Yeah.
I really sincerely think it's like,
Thank
and I'll
you.
tell you because I'm the same way. When I was at school, I thought I want to direct comedy television shows and movies.
Mm-hmm.
I instead of going to film school chose the drama program. I started in
Mm-hmm.
lighting because I was like, I just want a fucking job. But when I finally was like, what's the best use of my skill set? I'm like, I want to learn how to tell stories and I want to
Mm-hmm.
learn why human people do what they do. I want to learn understand why audiences react to human behavior and drama the way they do. I want to
Mm-hmm.
know what we perceive as believable. I want to know how to talk to performers in a way that gets them both excited and inspired to like perform. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's all interesting to me. And that I think is a theater thing more than a film and
Yes.
TV thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I studied the theater as a skill
Mm-hmm.
set with no real enthusiasm to be a professional theater maker. I loved theater.
Mm-hmm.
I still would do it like in the summer for fun
Mm-hmm.
or some shit, but I don't think I want to
Mm-hmm.
work in the theater all the time. It's just not my space. But now I produce and write and direct a show that is comedy based, that is based in the world of reality television, which is something that I would have made fun of so
Oh
hard
my
15
goodness.
years ago. I would have been
Look
like,
at you.
ugh,
Yes.
what a loser. I thought you were going to direct something cool because I was naive and no one told
Right.
me, like, dude, if you just want to write funny shit and like make it happen with people, there's a lot of ways that aren't the office to
Mm-hmm.
do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have to work with Judd Apatow to get that accomplished. There's all
Mm-hmm.
these other things. And your story, I think, is super important for that. There's a lot of things you can do. And there's no reason why you can't fucking go be a stage designer in 10 years if you wanted to.
Right. Yes, that
Like
is also true.
you're only going to work on your skill set more doing this, and it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be in an unconventional way that when you finally
Mm-hmm.
go to design something else, if you choose to do that, people are going to be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh shit, where did you get this idea? You're like, I put it on a bank once or whatever. I keep using the bank. That's
Yeah,
probably not
no,
what you do,
that's
but you understand.
yes, yes. Yeah,
That's
I
cool.
do feel like I'm in a very privileged lucky spot to be in, and I've been so like fortunate to have mentors and classmates and friends who continue to support me. And I mean, I don't have family here, so
Right.
um
Is
it
that
was
tough?
it does get tough, but like my life is here now, and I continue to, and I want to like keep working hard and um, just do the best I can. So
Any
to
thoughts
sort
of
of,
your family like joining you? Would they ever want to like live in the States, or
I don't know. I don't think so.
where do you live now? Are you in New York?
No, I'm in DC. I'm in
DC.
DC
Got
now.
it.
Yes. Hmm.
Awesome.
Um, but yeah, so it's definitely not something that I like did it on my own for sure.
I
So
appreciate it. Well, I'll speak on your behalf since you're speaking on everyone else's. It's both. It's fully both. I appreciate your humility and your humble nature, and you're clearly a very kind person that is very grateful for everything that you've been given as far as opportunities and education. But I'll tell you the same thing that I told Sophia, which is
hmm
this simply being here. By here, I mean in America, doing your art. And right now you have a job doing your art, you know?
hmm
Um, or at the very least, let's say you have a job that you got through your skill set.
hmm
That's to me, that's enough.
hmm
You got into school of the arts and then you got an American job with that skill set. To me, I'm glad you got the lottery, but even if you had to apply for the other one, over here, in no one's opinion, approved. Like, what are we talking about? There are lots of people out there who are tremendously talented artists, but
hmm
they haven't found a way to vehicle that to something. You know, they paint in their
hmm
backyard and it's great, but they don't really know how to take that into the next world. I think the idea that you were in Japan and you
hmm
got into a school that is not easy to get into in North Carolina. And not only
hmm
that, you got into a narrow program. How many lighting designers did you graduate with? Five?
Yes, five, exactly five.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
So
It's a really good
it's like,
guess.
well,
Yes.
I've been doing this for a while. It's this is not easy by itself. And also, this is a little thing the United States government doesn't know. And here's another thing maybe people don't know in general. DMP, quite a bit of attrition there. There's a fair amount of
Mm,
people who do not make it through that program. Let's talk
hmm.
lighting. There's
Yes.
a fair amount of people. How many people do you start with?
Well, we started with five, and then we got a transfer, and then one left. So
Oh, so
we
you had
ended
an
up,
in and out.
yeah,
Okay. All right. I'll give you the
yeah.
in and out. Did all your electricians make it through?
Well, the one that left was an electrician route.
You only had five
But
people in the whole lighting thing to begin with?
well, in my class, sorry, the
Right.
whole program had like
No,
30.
I mean in your class. You only had five
Oh yeah,
people?
yeah. In my graduating class, just five of us. Yes, it was a very small class, but my class was the last small, like
They're huge
graduating
after
class.
that.
Yes,
Got
it
it.
grew after. Yeah.
My point is, and as things might have changed, the program is not admit, graduate automatically. A lot of programs
Yes,
in America
it
are
is.
at the college at the bachelor's level of college.
Mm-hmm.
You get in unless you shoot someone, you're going to get through as long as you don't fail. You can
Mm-hmm.
both not fail and still not make it through the program at school because they're like, you're just not, it's not quite cutting it. You're not up to snuff. It's not working out. They can just let you fucking go. So you get into a group that's five and you made it till the end and you got a job. What are we
Mm-hmm.
talking about? Why are you even up for debate? It shouldn't be. I'm glad you won the lottery, but you shouldn't need the lottery. You've proven on paper, documented. You did it. You can do it. Let's keep her here. Let's keep her doing the thing she's clearly dedicated to doing. I don't know why I became Bill Clinton. Let's keep her here and let's make sure that I don't know. But she is showing us through the effort, through the work, that that value is there, you know? And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's something that we need to look at overall in this deeply flawed immigration system that we have,
Yes,
but
for
specifically within
sure.
the artistic side. I mean,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm saying it more and more on this podcast, like every time, but like people seem to lose track of the fact that while in America, when you tell someone you're going into the arts, they fucking laugh at you. It is still art and entertainment is the number one export in America by like really
Hmm.
fucking far. Like not
Mm-hmm.
even close. Film, TV, music, these are the things that the rest of the world looks to us and goes, good job. Can we have
Right.
some more of that, please? So the
Right.
idea that it's not valuable for you to learn how to make the most valuable thing that we make is insane.
Ridiculous. Yeah,
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it's bananas. And so when we have someone who has this background of being from another place and saying, "Look, I
Uh-huh.
have that skill set to help you guys out with making your most important thing." I think, why are we fighting with these
Hmm.
people? Like, why are we even having to have an argument? How many violinists do we need? Fair point, but we need a bunch.
Right.
Like, we do need a lot of people, and
Right.
lighting designers. Yuko, how many lighting designers are on Earth? 1,000? 2,000?
It's a small community. I know that for sure.
It's
Yeah.
so small. I know because we've both
It's
done it, and you
niche.
and I probably know half the lighting designers in America. Like, it's not a big group.
Yeah. No,
And
yeah.
and it's also split too because one of the things that is drastically different, and what's wild is that there's not more crossover in this, but I almost understand why, because it's so different, is between
Hmm.
practical live lighting and film lighting. It's
Ah,
so different, dude.
yes.
So different
Oh,
because
yes.
when you
Everything.
when you
Yeah.
design, right, for theater or for buildings or
Hmm.
for anything that's going to be
Hmm.
seen in person, you
Hmm.
have to think about every all these different points of
Angles
view.
and perspectives.
Oh no,
Right.
but if you
In
sit on this
camera,
side of the
it's just
house,
this small rectangle box that you only need to
exactly.
care about.
But you have
Yeah.
to make sure that from a 360 that that shot is exactly proper. And it is
Hmm.
so different. I mean, from the instruments they use to the language that they
Hmm.
use. Do you know that gobo? Do you know about this
Hmm.
thing?
Hmm.
You
What
know what it
about
is in your
gobos?
world, but do you
Yes.
know what a
Yes.
gobo is in the film world?
Is it different?
It has
Does it
nothing to
mean
do,
different?
it has absolutely nothing to do with lighting instruments.
Huh.
And it's
What
usually called a
what
gobo head, but they'll say gobo for short, which is confusing as shit. For those of you who are listening who are totally lost in the weeds and bored, first of all, how did you get this far and you still care? Second of all, I'll break this down because this is one of the first things that fucked me up. So if you're listening
Uh-huh.
to this, odds are you're probably more of a theater person. If you are and you hear gobo, I want you to close your eyes for a second in your head and think of a gobo. Whoever's listening, picture it. What is a gobo to you? All right. Now I'm going to break it down. For the theater kids, they're all picturing a thin piece of metal that is literally like a sheet of metal. It's so thin and it slides in front of a lighting element, and it changes as a template the shape and the look of the beam of light, right? So you may put some
Hmm.
leaves, you may put some fucking stars or some pattern, and you put it in front of the light. And then when you show the light on the ground, you're like, oh, wow, the light looks like stars. Okay. That's what a gobo is, right? And that's what you're thinking, I would imagine, Yuko.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
I'm on my first TV set, and we're setting up, and it's an interview setup.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to be doing like an interview on a green screen thing. So we got blast them with light in the front, a little bit of light from the
Uh-huh.
back. I got the
Yep.
basic elements. And they go, all right, will you roll over there, get me a gobo? I was like, no problem. I go, which kind? Like, what is it? And they go, what? And I was like, well, you want a gobo? What gobo do you want? They go,
Oh no.
anyone? And I was like, all right. I'm thinking, oh, well, they must all be the same. And in my
Uh-huh.
head, I'm also going, I wonder what kind of gobo they're putting in an interview. Like, it doesn't seem like it would make any sense to have like fucking leaves or something. I don't get this. And so I go over to the lighting truck that is like my
Hmm.
job to drive around and know what is inside. And I have a lighting background. And I'm
Hmm.
looking in this truck and I'm like, ain't no fucking gobos in here, man. Like, what? Ain't nothing. I'm looking through drawers. Finally, the camera person or whoever comes around the corner is like trying to get me to set up the shot. They're like, hey, what's up, dude? Gobo? Can we get one? I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm looking. They're like, what are you looking for? Just get one out of the box. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I don't think I know what you're talking about. And he walks over to a milk crate full
Uh-huh.
of metal knobs with little
Okay.
circles on it. and it is a metal fixture that goes on top of a C stand, also something we mostly don't use at all in
Uh-huh.
theater, which is a metal stand that they put lights and flags and stuff like that
Right.
on.
Okay.
It is the
Okay.
little head that you put the beam into that like telescopes out to be a thing. So you put a stand on the ground, you put a little metal
Oh.
head with a knob on it, and then
Uh-huh.
that's your contact point for like a light or a flag like piece of fabric or whatever. It's just a piece of
That's
metal
so
that's like a
weird.
almost like
What?
a bracket or like a I don't know what else the fuck you would call it. Another reason why I don't know how to talk about it because they're like it's a just get us a gobo head, man. And I was like, how is it that this weird word that doesn't really exist in any other place in English that I've ever heard? I've
Have
never heard someone
separate
say
meanings.
gobo and it mean
No.
anything else. First time I ever heard it was in a theater and they were talking about that
Right.
little piece of lighting template.
Yep.
It only exists in these two really close but not quite connected areas. And not only that, the people in charge of it aren't aware that it means both things in like
Right.
the camera guy's looking at me like I'm an idiot. I'm looking at him like I don't know why I'm an idiot. And and it's crazy to me that that no one on that whole set, and I explained it to everyone else on the set that day. I was like, anybody
Uh-huh.
else think am I crazy? Not a single one of those television crew people, of which there were 10 or 12, not a
Uh-huh.
single one had ever even heard of the other definition.
Oh my
They'd never even
goodness.
come up. They're like, oh, is that okay? Sure. Yeah, gobo
That's
head, thing on top of the C
crazy.
stand. And I was like, I get it. I get why when I was fucking 20 and I was like, I want to go to school for theater and then I want to work in film and TV. Everyone was like, be careful. They're very separate. And I was like, how can they be? That makes no sense to me. They're so similar. We point
Right.
lights at this thing and they act. We point lights at this thing and they act. It's the fucking same. The only difference is it's a camera versus there's people here. It's so, like,
Hmm.
I don't get it, but they're right. It is two different. I would rather hire a theatrical lighting designer to put lights on a bank than to put lights on a film set because I would just be worried about the full day they would spend trying to learn the goddamn words, talking to a bunch of grips and people on the film
Right.
set who are like, gobo? No. Because they also don't
That's
need
so
gobos.
interesting. Yeah.
There's no purpose for a gobo on a film
Right.
set almost ever. You would never need to do
Right.
that. Like,
Yep.
because it's such a impractical way to light something because
Hmm.
that's not how light works. It is
No.
almost never like coming through the template unless you use it to put the lines because it's a wooden, incomplete
Mm-hmm.
like ceiling and there's
Ceiling.
moonlight.
Yes. Slats. Yeah.
Oklahoma. How many other times is that even going to come up? It's
That's
so
so
rare.
weird. That must have been so frustrating for you to
Deeply
like
frustrating.
because you know what it is
I do.
in theater world,
Clothespins.
but
That's the
uh
other big one. You know about that?
those pins.
You know, we
Mm.
use clothespins on like gels and stuff like that
Oh
sometimes to
yes.
clip it on the barn
Uh-huh.
doors.
Yep.
Is that
Yep.
what you would call the clip?
It
The
was
wooden
just
one?
the wooden one. I don't
You know,
think
like
I've
little
used that
wooden
very
clothespin. Do
much.
you know what I'm talking about with the little metal spring in it? It's just made of wood. Two little pieces of wood.
Maybe
You've
not.
never you are we not talking about the same thing right now? I have one of these in my house. I'm gonna have to like run and get a clothespin. Um, but yeah,
What is it in film world? What?
they call them bullets, or even
Oh,
worse, and more commonly, they call them C-47s. I'm
I don't
not
like
joking.
that. I don't like that.
I hate it. There is no
C-47
C-46 or 48. The C, maybe it stands for
does
clothespin or clip.
does
I'm
not
not even
make
convinced.
sense.
I will tell you this. The film world, and I don't know where, I would love to do a little research on the history of this actually and see how it works. The
Hmm.
film world plays so fast and loose with terms. I literally feel like
Mm,
people at some point in the history of filmmaking, probably like in LA in like the 50s or something. I don't know. I'm making this up. But at some point, a bunch of people got in the film business that did not have a background in like theater or anything else. And maybe they came from radio, I don't know. But they came
Mm-hmm.
over and they just started renaming things that already had fucking names. Like they were like, throw me a stinger. And you're like, extension cord? You know, the like
Yes,
we would call it like an extension cord, or in
right.
theater, we might refer to it by the kind of plug it has and be like, can we get the 50-foot Edison cable?
Yep, yep.
But we
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't a stinger. What is a stinger? What does that have to do with anything? Why did you make up a new word? We already have a word for this. But they
Mm-hmm.
did that. They're like, these are C-47s. Like we've been pinning close up with them for a long time. We could just call it that. They're like, nah, that's the new film word.
Oh my goodness.
It's wild and unnecessary.
Very unnecessary and so
And then it's
confusing.
confusing. And then when
Does
people are
not
like, you
help
can just hop over the
anybody.
fence, I'm gonna be like, it's not so easy. And I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
smart. I like plugging things in, and I still can't figure out what the fuck a gobo is. So I don't know.
Yep.
Who knows? Um, Yuko, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. This was really
Oh my
fun.
goodness. Yes, thank you for the opportunity. This was really fun.
I feel like this podcast just keeps getting more broad. I'm going to be honest with you. I've talked to a lot of
Uh-huh.
white drama students and I'm tired of it. Okay. I'm worn out. It's the same fucking story. Like, oh, I grew up in the church and now I need attention. And I'm out.
Oh.
I'm out of the, that first of all, fucking 0% of them are listening this deep into the episode. There's no way they're going to hear me say that. Second of all, if they
Okay.
do, you know I love you. Who am I to complain about white drama students? Hello. It's me all day. But thank you for your story. I really
Yes,
do
thank
appreciate
you.
it. I think the international artist story is super important. I'll give another shout out to Sophia.
Yes,
Everyone go back and
please
listen to
do.
her wonderful
Mhm.
episode. And thank her for all of these great international stories that we've been able to add to our archives here because it can be, and maybe we'll have you back on another point when we have a little more time. We can kind of get
Mhm.
into this too. I'd like to maybe even do a round table with several different people where we kind of talk
I
about
think that would be so
experiences.
much fun.
It
Yes.
might be good, and I can sort of moderate. We'll see, but I would love to do that with an international group because I
Yep,
feel like
absolutely.
the stories are all over the place and there's only so
Mhm.
many. And it's kind of an insular group. A lot of times the international students can kind of clump together with other international kids because they have that
Mhm.
experience. So they kind of end up a
Mhm.
little bit more connected,
Mhm.
especially in the bigger schools like
Yes.
music, DMP, and film, where there's a lot more students. So you kind of get it's a little harder to do that in drama when there's only like 25 kids in the whole class. But like even so, it can kind of get broken off that way. And so I really want to make sure that we stress that the
Mhm.
international experience is a huge part of School of the Arts. A lot of kids
Mhm.
from all over the world who fly away from their hometowns and their
All the
home
way to
languages and their
Winston-Salem.
families to North Carolina to learn how to do God knows what, and then take it into all sorts of really fun directions. Also, you talk to most people who go to School of the Arts, they're going to be like, and then I went to LA, and then I went to New York,
Mm.
and then I went, blah, blah. We these conversations, then I had to go back to Tokyo, then I had to go back to Delhi, then I had to go back to,
Yeah.
Rio de Janeiro, or I had
Yeah.
whatever. Um, or now I'm in DC, or now I'm in New York, or now I'm blah, blah, blah. Or I went and I
Mhm.
came back. The stories are more broad, or
Mhm.
more abroad, I should say. And they are a little more colorful, I think, in the way that
Mm.
they help us dive into decision making, which I think is a big
Yes.
part of the show as well. It's like, why do you end up doing what you're doing? And I think your story is great for that, ending
Thank
up in that
you.
place. Do you think, and this will maybe we'll put a button on it with this last question. Do you think do you think architectural lighting is something that you find is a new career for you and interest? Or is it more something that you think you want to spend some time doing now, work on the skill set, make a few checks and get a new kind of color to your resume, then go back to something more performative? Or what do you see trajectory for yourself? Not making your mind up today, but
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I don't know yet, but for now I'm still sort of like learning a lot
right,
about architectural lighting and still sort of exposing myself to that
humble as
world.
always.
Um um but no, I think there's a little bit more of a mundane side to some kind of architectural lighting
Sure.
design where it's a lot more about code and numbers and all that.
Right.
But there is the beauty side of things that I think with my theater background really helps bring that forward.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that. And then also because because it's architectural lighting, it's like forever unless the building
I was
is
going to say
gone.
arguably a bigger
So
audience.
right, exactly. So there is that sort of like joy and fulfillment to that. And yeah, I mean, I love it. I'm gonna continue exploring and I'm gonna continue challenging myself and see where we go from there, I guess.
I love that. That's so cool. And again, I can't stress it enough. I think it's so interesting that you found this other avenue within it, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Thank you.
Let me know. I tell you what, if you can, let me know if some project that you're working on in the DC area is something
We'll
you end up
do,
being really
yes.
proud of. Send it over. Let's check it out.
Thank you. We'll do, yep.
We'll share it
It
with
takes a
everybody.
while, I will tell you that. Not theater. It's not loading in
It's a
a
fucking
week.
building. It's a whole building. We'll give you a minute.
Yep.
Take your time.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Yuko.
Thank you so much.